Okay, you are welcome back to this lesson. Yesterday we discussed many things about cost estimating, the different classes of cost estimating, the different types of cost estimating, the different methods of cost estimating. We discussed some general information about estimating and costs. I will now discuss pricing and so forth. So in the course of this lecture today, we are going to limit ourselves to risk-based estimating. In as much as estimating is very important, so risk is also very important in terms of estimating. Any project that is not risk-based is going to fail untimely. So in the course of this lecture, we have to discover what is called cost risk management. If we have to first of all say what is cost risk, a cost risk is any uncertainty. It can be trends, can be opportunities that will likely make the cost of a project to overrun. That will likely make the cost of project to overshoot the original budget. So the success or failure of projects depend on its risk management. And as I said yesterday, all uncertainties are called risk. They can be trends when they are negative, and they can be positive when they are opportunities. So risk management usually follow a similar sequence. In any project, the impact of risk on estimating needs to be evaluated properly. And in the course of this lecture, you will see most of them. Then risk management is a systematic and iterative process, comprises of 5 major steps. 1, the risk plan. The risk plan is a document, or the risk planning is a process of trying to set aside different risk thresholds, risk probability threshold, the impact threshold, and all the sources and origin of defining all the different type of risk category. When you when you plan all these things during the planning stage, you are going to come up with a document. That document is called risk management plan. And the risk management plan is a subset of project management plan. As we have project management plan as the general document consisting of all the management plan in the project. We have what we call scope management plan, schedule management plan, cost management plan, risk management plan, quality management plan, even stakeholder management plan, even procurement management plan. So a lot of them. So in the course of this risk, a single document will come out which is called risk management plan. So the risk threshold is set to at what level will you know that this risk is going to cause a low impact or a high impact or a medium impact. And we assign a probability of occurrence to it, and we check what is the impact when the risk finally happens, what will be the impact level of the risk. When you set all these things down on that project risk management, you will go to the next step, which is risk identification. I'm going to show you most of the document later in Excel. So the risk identification is a process of you trying to identify all the risk inherently on a project. The risk that as at the time of estimating, the risk you are able to identify on a project. So when you identify all these risks, you will now tabulate all of them in a single document called risk register. I'm going to show you an example of risk register shortly in Excel format. When you have all the risk register with all the risk identified, you will go to the next step, which is now the risk analysis. There are 2 steps in this risk analysis. We have the qualitative and the quantitative risk analysis. The qualitative risk analysis is you try to assess the quality of that risk. Is it a high risk? Is it a low risk? Is it a medium risk? Will it likely to occur? You try to prioritize the risk according to their level of quality of occurrence. That is qualitative analysis. So the quantitative analysis is you try to assign a numerical value on the scale to give them their various levels of impact. For example, you will say if risk between 0 to 4, they are low impact risk. The one between 5 to 10, they are medium impact risk. And the one that is between level to 15, they are high impact risk. So assigning those numerical values in trying to weigh the impact of a risk is what we call quantitative risk analysis. And this can be done either by expected monetary value or using Monte Carlo simulation. This EMV is expected monetary value. It's not value management. It's expected monetary value. So when you quantify and you carry out qualitative analysis and quantitative analysis of the risk, the next thing you will not set aside risk response plans. If they happen, how are we going to tackle it? If it is opportunity, how are we going to increase the chance of occurrence? If it is threat, how are we going to reduce the risk of occurrence? So you will develop an options or an action that can increase opportunity and reduce stress. That is risk. And when you are trying to do it, you will see later the different response strategy for both opportunity and threats. The next thing, you go to risk control. Risk control is you try to monitor, communicate, and enhance the risk management effectiveness. You are tracking and you are monitoring risk in the risk register, identifying new risk and executing action plan. That is why we use the word that the risk management is an iterative process. It is not a one-time activity. As the project evolves, as the process is going, you begin to identify new risk. One risk, what we call primary risk. From the primary risk, another risk can come out, which is secondary risk. So all those are the process of trying to monitor all those various risks. What we call risk control. So the next one we will now go is risk analysis for planning project costs. Three factors are to be considered in managing cost risk during the cost planning phase. One, you have to consider the stakeholders. The stakeholders are all the people that will be negatively or positively affected during the course by the project. Anybody that will be positively or negatively affected by the project are called the stakeholders of the project. And because these stakeholders have different view about the project, they have different requirements about the project. So their opinions, their assumption, their individual requirements might be different. And as such, you have to manage them differently. That is why in the course of project estimating, you have to first of all engage the stakeholders. Who are the people involved in this project? What are we really going to do? What assumption are we having in mind? What constraint are we considering? How are we going to source those funds? All those things should be discussed in this stakeholder management meeting. So when you discuss this, everybody will now have a clear view about the project. So the estimators will now know what they have at the back of their mind before they start the estimating. So they should be properly informed and engaged from the beginning in order to prepare an accurate estimate. The next one is to consider the entire life cycle of the project. A project, the estimating phase is not just the only phase of a project. Projects move through many phases, which is the initiation, which is the planning phase, which is the execution, which is the monitoring and control, which is the closures. So all the cost of investment, is it resources acquisition? Is it project implementation? All should be identified and captured during cost planning, as well as any future recurring cost of operation to the total life costing of the project. So you have to know holistically what is going to be the actual total cost of the project. Are you in resources acquisition, project implementation, cost of funds, cost of labors? All these things should be considered as the entire life cycle cost of the project. So it should not just be at a particular time. It should be the total life cycle of the project. The next thing is the project funding strategies. How are you going to source for this funding? Is it going to be self-funding? Is it going to be funded with equity or to be funded with debt? We have what we in business. If you want to start a business, you know what is called the equity and the debt. So the asset of the company is equity plus the debt. The equity is the stakeholder contribution to that project. In fact, if you want to start a project that worth 1 million and you have 800 million available for that project, your equity is 800,000. And the remaining 20,000, you will go and source it somewhere, borrow it, so that you will use it to complete your work. So that money you borrow aside is called debt. Your project can be funded through debt or it can be funded through equity. So, and equity plus debt gives you what we call the assets of the company. So those ones should be put into account before you, during the planning stage of costing, before you now move into detail estimating. The next one is managing risk uncertainty during project cost estimates. Cost estimates are based on no information at a given time. If you don't know any information about the project, you can't really cost it effectively. So because you are basing your estimate on no information at a given time, decisions such as outsourcing activities. Are you going to buy or you are making? Resources sharing have to be considered during the risk analysis, as they will impact the project cost estimate if not properly done. In project cost estimates, identify risk and the cost associated with each plan. To mitigate them must be documented in documents. These two documents are called risk management plan and they are called risk registers. So a risk management plan is a budget for risk. A budget for risk needs to be included. So risk register, this is the list of all the risks yet to be covered during the project. No contingency, no monetary value has been assigned so far. So this list of so far not yet covered is all those risks need to be captured in a document, and they are called risk register. I think I will show you an example. The accuracy of estimate at the beginning of project phase is very low because of high uncertainty. That means during the preliminary estimate, the uncertainty in the project is very high, and the estimate will likely not to be accurate. As project progresses, the accuracy of the estimate will also improve. So the contingency at the management reserve must be captured at this stage to reflect the cost budget. It is when you add the contingency plus the cost estimate plus the management reserve that you can come up with what we call budget. Now, let me show you what is a risk register. This is a sample of a risk register. You can see this risk register. This is a construction project. This is source of the risk. These are source of the risk. These are the risk events. These are the causes, internal issue. So you can see, for example, project conception and initiation. What are the risk events? Project vision might be truncated. Project vision, okay, it may lead to delay of project execution. It may lead to delay in cost overrun. So what are the causes? Maybe lack of clarity of vision of the project. So these are the causes. So if you come to this place, you can see where we have moderate, very high, maybe we also have low. So the process of categorizing risk based on this information, moderate, high, low, is what we call qualitative risk analysis. But analyzing risk having a numerical value of this one. So when the risk is 2, it is low impact risk. When it is 5, it is a high impact risk. You can say 1 to 4 is low, 5 to 11 is moderate, 12 to 16 is high, 17 to 25 is very high. So putting risk in all this form, low, high, moderate, very high, is what we call qualitative risk analysis. So assigning numerical value to them, like this 1 to 4, is what we call quantitative risk analysis. And it can be done for both risk, for both trends and opportunity. So when you put it, you have to put a recovery measure. So what are the actions to be taken to ensure this risk are tackled in case they finally happen? So this is an example of a risk register. You can see this is for construction project. This is for asset and property management. This is for sales and marketing. This is for contract and procurement. This is for HSE. This is for admin. This is for finance account. So everybody has risk. Anything that involves a project, they must have risk, and we have to analyze all those risks. So let me go back to my slides. So other factors to be considered in project cost estimates. When estimating the cost associated with different resources, such as materials, equipment, labor, the risk associated with variable costs must be analyzed, such as variability in exchange rates. For example, I told you during estimating, you have to put what we call a escalation clause, inflation clause, and material escalation, labor escalation. So when you set out your estimate and you consider the variability of the exchange rate in the country, if, for example, you are estimating now, you can put in those inflation clause. If the exchange rate of this estimate changes from above 5% increment, this estimate is no longer valid. We have to review the estimate because of the high variability in exchange rates. So also, historical cost information and lesson learned from similar projects must be considered to assess the level of risk involved. So when you are carrying out your risk analysis, you have to go to what is called cost historical information, and we have to go to the document archived, which are the lesson learned from the project. So if you are doing a similar project, you should go back and check the lesson learned. What are the lessons learned from the previous projects? So from there, you can get more information about the risk involved during the project execution, and you can use that one to improve the level of your estimation. Control of risk processes. There are different ways of controlling risk. You can avoid it, you can prevent, you can reduce, you can transfer, you can even hedge, and you can use risk insurance. So I will explain the meaning of those ones in the next slide for you. This is an example of risk register also. Response, no, I said risk is any uncertainties, either trends, or opportunities that needs to be properly evaluated during the course of project planning and estimating. So when you now discover the inherent risk of your project, you will now put in a response or a control strategy in case it finally happens, how you are going to mitigate them. So for trends, these are the ways you can mitigate your risk. One, you avoid it. Involves eliminating either the probability or the impact. This can be done by either clarifying requirements, acquiring expertise, or changing the project management plan. You just avoid it. Now, okay, we don't want this project, it's too risky, you just avoid that risk. So you can say reduce. This involves mitigating the key driver to reduce the probability and the impact of the risk. What are we expecting from risk or opportunity is their probability of occurrence and the impact they will make in case they eventually happens. So transfer, risk can also be transferred to another third party, for example, using health insurance. In case, okay, I'm using a vehicle, I will go and secure a vehicle insurance. In case the vehicle gets an accident, you transfer the risk to the risk insurance companies. So they bear the risk in case the car eventually has an accident. So that type of risk is, that type of mitigating process is what we call transfer. You transfer it to another third party. So there are also another risk when no proactive action is to be taken because cost either outweigh benefit or there is already an adequate contingency provision that will protect the project objective. In such a case, you accept the risk. If the risk is very low and there is a contingency reserve already provided to tackle the risk if it actually happens, so such risk, you accept it to yourself. So those are strategies you use to treat threats. In case of opportunities, you exploit. When you see an opportunity, the first thing that will come to your mind, how will I exploit this opportunity? It involves taking steps to guarantee the opportunity will arise. That is why in the recovery strategies or response plan, we make efforts to increase the chance of the opportunity happening and decrease the chance of the threat happening. So, two, you can share it. This involves sharing the risk with the third party better who is able to manage it properly. You can also enhance. This means you have seen it. For example, you want to, you bought a car that is a fairly used car. So, okay, if I want to sell it, I think it might not really be costly because of the nature of the car. So let me repaint, let me carry out some renovation inside the car. You have enhanced the probabilities of people buying the car. So that type of risk management is you enhance it. So that you exploit opportunity, you share the opportunity, you enhance the opportunity, or you accept the opportunities. Now, the next one is strategies for risk control, which we have almost like discussed. So the next one is risk management closure. When you finalize everything about the risk register at the final project closure, you cannot close the risk management plan. In such a case, you collect and debrief. You evaluate, document, then you archive them in the form of a lesson learned into the project archive. So now the next thing we need to discuss now is the expected monetary value calculations. Expected monetary value calculations. In risk, we have what we call the expected monetary value, and we also have what we call the decision tree. Both of them are statistical techniques used in risk management. It is used to quantify risk and calculate the contingency reserve. It helps you to know how to determine the contingency of a project. You know, in normal estimating, people will just carry out their basic estimate, add 10% contingency. The question is, how do you know that the 10% will be enough? Remember, contingency is not the contractor's money. It's a money set aside to handle risks that are known on a project. If the risk fail to happen, that money will be returned to the owners. Now, in evaluating contingency reserve, two things need to be kept in mind. One is the probability of occurrence. What is the probability? What is the likelihood that this event will occur? Two, we have the impact. The impact is what is the amount of impact or the amount of money you will spend to handle this risk if it eventually happens. So probabilities and impact is what we use to evaluate an expected monetary value. And this impact and probability can be formed in the document called probability impact matrix. From there, you can see the probability, the impact, the probability, the impact. At the end, it will form a matrix form, and that is what we call probability impact matrix. Now, when you now have the probability of occurrence and the impact, the monetary value you will spend, to calculate the end expected monetary value is probability times impact. You will calculate the expected monetary value of all risks, regardless of whether they are positive or they are negative. The expected monetary value will be negative for negative risk and positive for positive risk. If you have multiple risks, you will add the expected monetary value of all the risks. This will be the expected monetary value for the project. When you have this different one, you sum all of that together, you will see how those work can be done during the course of the exercise or using decision tree. For example, expected monetary value calculation. You will see the risk 1, risk 2, risk 3, risk 4. You see the probability of occurrence, 10%, 30%, 25%, 60%. This is the impact, minus 4,000, minus 1,000, 2,000, minus 1,500. This negative impact are what we call strength. This is strength, this is strength, this is strength. So the positive is the opportunity. So when you add everything together, you are having 4,500. So this 4,500 is not actually the expected monetary value of this project. To get the expected monetary value is probability multiplied by the impact. 10% of this is 400. 30% of this is 30. 25% of 2,000 is 500. 60% of this is 900. So when you add all of that together, positive and negative value, you are having minus 110. That minus 110 is now the expected monetary value, and the risk is what? Is a trade. When the final value, when the final expected monetary value is negative, it is called trade. But if it is opportunity, it is it will be positive. So that is how you calculate the expected monetary value of your project. So the expected monetary value concept work well to calculate the contingency reserve when you have many risks, because the more risk you identify, the spread of the contingency reserve will be better among the risks. see an example of its calculations. Now, this is an example of expected monetary value calculation. Question 1. You have identified risk with a 10% chance of occurring. If this risk eventually occurs, it may cost you $500. Calculate the expected monetary value for this risk. So the expected monetary value for this risk is not just the 500. It's not just the 500 US dollar that it will cost you. No, because it doesn't have 100% probability of occurrence. It only has 30% chance of occurring. So to now get the actual monetary value of that risk is to multiply the probability by the impact. Because it is a risk that will happen, that is why it is called it's negative. So when you multiply 30% of 150 of 500, sorry, this is 500 here. Here is 500. 30% of 500 will give you minus 150. So the expected monetary value of this risk is 150. And since it is negative, it is a trend. 2, you have identified an opportunity with a 40% chance of happening. However, it may help you gain $2,000 if this risk occurs. Calculate the expected monetary value for this risk. Since it has 40% chance and it is an opportunity, it's going to be positive. So that is why we have the probability, which is 0.4 times the impact, which is 2,000, and it's positive because it is an opportunity. So the expected monetary value for this risk is $800 US, and it is an opportunity. When it is negative, it is a trend. When it is positive, it is an opportunity. The next one is, look at the third one. You have identified 2 risks. With a 20% and a 50% chance of occurring. They will cost you $1,000 and $2,000 if both risks happen. What is the expected monetary value of this risk? The first one has 20% chance of happening, and the cost is 1,000. So it will not be 2% of minus 1,000 because it is a risk, a trend. So you will now, 20% of 1,000 is 200. So the other one is 50% of 2,000. 50% of 2,000 is 300. So because both of them are trends, you will add the two together. 200 minus 200 plus minus 200, everything is giving you minus 500. So this minus 500 is the total risk, is the total monetary value of the risk you have identified. Assuming you are calculating contingency, this is the amount of contingency you will add to your project. All these values are the amount of contingency you will add to your project. Question 4. During risk management planning, your team has identified 3 risks with probability of 10%, 50%, and 35%. If the first 2 risks occurred, they will cost you $5,000 and $8,000 respectively. However, the third risk will give you $10,000 USD if it occurs. And that is an opportunity. Now, what should we do The first question is 10% of minus 5,000 is giving you minus 500. The second one is 550% of minus 8,000. It gives you this. So the third one, because it's an opportunity, it will now be 0.35 of 10,000, and it will give you 3,500. So if you add all of that together, which is minus 500 plus minus 4,000, minus 4,000 plus 3,500, you now see everything will now be 1,000 minus 1,000 So what you will do, the expected monetary value will now be minus 1,000, because you already have an opportunity that can give you 35, which counteracts this value here and remain only 500. So when you add this 500 minus 500 plus this minus 500, you are having the 1,000, and that is the 1,000 you need to counteract the contingency that will happen to the project. The other, what are the benefits of expected monetary values? The expected monetary value offers many benefits in risk management, such as it gives you an average income of all identified uncertain events. Yes. It helps you to calculate the contingency reserve. Yes. In a decision tree diagram, it helps in selecting the best choice. Yes. It does not require any costly resources, only expert opinion. It helps you with a make or buy decision during the project, during the planned procurement process. When you carry out the contingency and add it to your estimate cost, you cannot determine, should I go ahead with this project or I should not go ahead with this project. What are the drawbacks? This technique is usually not used in small and medium-sized projects. This technique involves expert opinion to finalize the probability and impact of the risk. Therefore, personal bias may affect the results. Yes. This technique works well where you have many risks. Yes, that is where you can identify the probabilities and their various impacts. If you miss positive risk, it will affect the outcome. If there are, for example, like this one we calculated just now, instead of this positive risk opportunity, we mistakenly make it straight and it's minus. Instead of this answer to become minus 1,000 contingency reserve, it will become 35 plus this will have been at 75 plus 5, which will have been 8,000. Imagine the difference. So that is why if you miss positive risk, it will affect the outcome. So now we talk about decision tree. Decision tree is a form of expected monetary value analysis. They are techniques to evaluate and compare the probability and financial impact of an investment choice. The decision tree analysis is a diagram which shows the cost, probability, and the financial consequence of taking certain decisions with mutually exclusive options. For example, this is like a project. Say the process and sub-process monetary value are added. This is like a project. There is a project A. Project A has a probability of 50% of occurrence, and when it happens, the impact is going to be 4,000. Project B has impact probability of 50% and impact of 5,000. Project C has impact of 2,000 but probability of 60%. D has impact of 1/6, probability of this. E has impact of 1/2 but probability of 0.8. Process F has 1,000 impact and 20% probability of occurrence. So to now know which of these activities or which of these parts will be the easiest way for you to go. If we calculate AC, we are calculating this A to this C here. It will now be the impact times the probability plus the impact of C plus probability. This is impact of A plus times the probability. This is the impact of C times the probability. You get this value. You also do the same thing for AD, you get this. You also do the same thing to BE, you get this. You also do the same thing to BF, you get this. Now, the lowest cost case is AD. AD, when you check here, AD is the lowest, which is 2,640, and should be selected. So the lowest cost impact is what you will select from the project. When you have alternatives, different scenario built like this, so the path that gives you the lowest cost should be the path to be chosen. So in this our case study, the AD has the lowest cost risk, and as such, it should be selected. So, however, case BF, which is also 27, is also within a few percentage point to cost DE. So sensitivity analysis may be helpful to refining the judgment to say, oh, when they are within limit, 2,640 and 2007 is not too big. How, if we use like a form of a scenario manager to check their sensitivities, we'll be able to know, weigh them more. If I go with 2,640, is there anything that is there? If I go with the one of 27, am I going to get more quality as compared if I do it with 2,614, which is the lowest cost? If there are additional qualities I can derive by doing it, by spending this 2,700, then I will go to 2,700, even though the lowest cost risk is 2,640. So these are the ways to evaluate contingency in project cost estimating. It's not something you just guess from your head, add 10%. How do you know if the 10% will be added? So this decision tree and the expected monetary values are the techniques used in estimating contingency reserve in cost estimating. So at this point, we take a 5 minutes break to move around, then we come back to the next session, which is different types of contract also create an impact on the estimate. Who bears the risk from the different types of contracts? So when we come back, we discuss those different types of contracts and their risk and when to use them and how the risk can impact the estimate cost. So in the next 5 minutes, we come back again. Thank you very much. If you have your question, you can put them on the chat box. So when we come back, we discuss that.
I just park here.
So can we start?
Please go ahead.
Okay, so let's just start so we can maybe we'll finish in the next maybe 20 minutes or so. So now, a costing I hope you can see my screen.
Yes.
Okay. In estimating, during the types of contracts also have impact on the estimate you are going to generate. That is one of the estimator perception, the estimator's view about the project. And we have three major types of contracts in construction or in projects. We have the fixed price contract, we have the cost reimbursable contract, and we have the time and the material contracts. So we will discuss each of them and check under which condition they are being used. When we use the word buyers, buyers is the owner, while seller is the contractor here. So for a fixed contract, it is used when the scope of work is well defined. When you know the scope of work is clear. For example, go and help me paint 20 square meter of wall. The scope of work is clear to you. Based on that, you can say it will cost me 50,000 naira, then go ahead. That is when it is used. It can also be used, change in scope of work is usually allowed. This change in the scope of work is usually allowed. So when we use it for when the scope of work is well defined, the buyer, which is the owner, and the seller is the contractor, has a legal obligation to provide acceptance against the scope of work. Then the seller has a legal obligation to complete the scope of work. Now, when the change in scope of work is usually allowed, buyer usually has to pay the extra over and above the fixed price for the agreed upon change from the change order request. Then the seller has to complete the extra work as defined in the agreed upon change. The seller can decide to say, which is the contractor, can decide to say, I am not doing the extra work. Please, the first one I'm giving, I will finish that one, I will go. He also has that legal right. So the price is fixed. It cannot be varied. Buyers has a legal obligation to pay agreed upon fixed price to the seller. The seller can legally claim full payment after completing the work. Cost risk is in favor of the buyers because the contractor, the owner, the cost risk favors the buyers, which is the owner. It's a fixed price, give it to the contractor. Whether anything goes wrong with the contractor, he's not even interested in it. As far as the contractor has accepted the offer, it is legally binding. So the risk is shifted to the contractor, who is the seller, and the risk favor the owners. So buyers, who is the owner, has a minimal cost risk. Seller, who is the contractor, has a risk of losing money. Conversely, the seller can maximize his or her profit if he carries out the work very meticulously. Now, the next, under this fixed price contract, we have other three contracts under this fixed price contract. We have what we call the firm fixed price contract. We have what we call the firm fixed price contract. We have what we call fixed price incentive fee. We have fixed price with economic price adjustment. So what this price means is that this firm fixed price contract is the exact amount of the contract plus a fee. Just do this work perfectly. This is the actual cost of the work, but we pay you a certain fee for doing it, which is your profit. The other one is fixed price incentive fee contract, which means this is the price of the work. Maybe the cost plus your profit plus additional fee, which is called incentive fee. Mean if you are to finish this work for 3 months, if you are able to finish it within 2 months, you are going to get additional 10%. It's an incentive fee. It's used to compensate, to motivate contractor so as to work effectively. Or if you perform better as expected, we are going to give you an incentive fee of 5%. That is fixed price incentive fee contract. We also have fixed price with economic price adjustable. we are giving you this contract price, but if the inflation in the economy increase more than 10%, we are going to give you another fee due to the economic adjustment. So that type of contract is what we call fixed price with economic price adjustment. If the inflation, or in case there is material escalation, you will now come back and say there is material escalation, the owner has to pay that escalating fee and add it to the original cost of the contract plus the initial profit that will not give you the price of the contract. So this fixed price contract, fixed price incentive contract, then the fixed price with economic adjustable contract, they all fall under fixed price contract. In summary, in a fixed price contract, the risk favors the owner, who is the buyer, and the seller, who is the contractor, bears the highest impact of the risk. The other one is cost reimbursable contract. Cost reimbursable contract is used majorly when the scope of work is not clear to the seller or to the contractor. You don't really understand what you are going to do. For example, if you are telling somebody, okay, go and, how would I do it now? Go and dredge so place. You don't know the depth of dredging. You don't really know, you can't really understand the nature of the dredging. What the contract will ask, okay, you go and do it. When you finish, bring the receipt. We will audit the receipt and pay you the amount on that receipt plus your own agreed fee. That is example of cost reimbursable contract. Now, generally, scope of work is either undefined or loosely defined. It's not clear to the seller. So at this point, the buyer provides acceptance when work is satisfactorily completed. The seller has a legal obligation to complete the work as defined by the buyers and nothing else. That is why in scope management, the concept is do exactly what is in the scope and nothing more. Don't try to gold plate. When you are trying to do extra that is not required by legal document, that is not accepted or legally documented by the buyers, you are only trying to gold plate that contract. And the buyer has the right not to pay you for that money, because the rule is do exactly what is in the scope and nothing else. When change in scope of work is usually allowed, yes, buyer has a legal obligation to pay for the extra cost arising out of change, but there must be a change order. You must notify the buyer, the owner, that the change is required. The owner must draft that change order, properly documented, before you can go ahead with the work. Seller can legally create extra costs arising out of changes. Price is not fixed. That is why the invoice is always updated. Buyers have a legal obligation to reimburse the actual cost incurred by the seller. Seller can legally claim reimbursement after delivery the best effort. Contract fee is well defined. Buyer has a legal obligation to pay the agreed upon fee to the seller. Price is different from fee. We are saying this is the contract fee. The cost is different. Fee is equals to cost plus the fee. Fee is your gain, it's like your profit you are getting. So the seller can legally claim fee after delivery the best effort. Cost risk is in favor of the seller. Because the work is not known, the scope of work is not well defined, it's not well known, the risk is borne heavily by the buyers. Because when you sign the contract, you tell the seller or the contractor, go and do the work. Bring the invoice for me. I will only audit the invoice. So if the seller inflates the invoice, the seller, the buyers, the owner, we have to pay because it's only bringing the invoice. But the invoice has to be properly audited to check whether you are really submitting the right invoice. So in such a case, the owner bears the risk in cost reimbursable contract, unlike fixed contract where the risk is borne by the seller. Seller has almost no risk of losing money. Yes, everything he's doing, he sent the invoice to the owner paid for it. It's just to give me the fee. I'm helping you to do it, value of work done, pay the value of work done, and give me my fee. When is the contract type required? Buyers is unable to define scope of work due to lack of information or for some other. Seller cannot estimate cost due to absence of well-defined scope of work. When scope of work is not well defined, seller cannot really assess the actual estimate of that work. So in such a contract, you have to use the cost reimbursable contract. As we have 3 types of fixed contracts, we also have 4 types of cost reimbursable contracts. That is what we call cost plus fixed fee contract, cost plus percentage fee, cost plus incentive fee, and cost plus award fee. They are all cost of the project plus a fixed fee. Just do the work. I will pay you for the cost of doing it. I will give you 20,000 naira for your work done. That is the cost plus fixed fee. Your fee is constant. I will give you 100,000 for helping me to do this work. Do it, come with the invoice. I will pay for the actual work, but I will give you 100,000 naira for helping me to do it. That is cost plus fixed fee. The other one is cost plus percentage fee. Help me to do this work. I will give you 10% of the work you have done. If the actual work costs 100,000, I will give you 10% of it, which is 10,000 naira. The other one is cost plus incentive fee. Okay, just do the work. I will pay you a incentive fee, and when you finish the work early as expected, or you do better as expected, I will give you another incentive fee. So the other one is cost plus award fee. I will pay you a percentage of the award sum. If the award sum is 1 million, I'm going to pay you 10% of 1 million for the work. Those are the different types of cost reimbursable contracts. So the last type of contract for today is the time and material contracts. When do we use this? The scope of work is broadly defined. Quantity is undefined. For example, it's majorly used for some little work, just a little scope of work, small one, but the work is just broadly defined. For example, if I want to maybe go and do that work, it will cost you 1 day. If you finish it with after 1 day, I will pay you so day for doing the work for me 1 day. That's why it's called time and material. Or go and help me fix 5 meter length of rods. You already know it's broadly defined. So this type of contract, the buyer provides acceptance when work is satisfactorily completed. The seller has a legal obligation to complete the work as defined by the buyers. Change in scope of work is usually allowed. Buyer has a legal obligation to pay the extra units arising out of changes. Seller can legally claim payment for extra units arising out of changes. The rate is fixed. This is what is used for some call-off contracts. The contractor has been doing it before. He is the one that has been helping you to be doing it before. And he has the rate already. The company has the rate given to the contractor to be doing it. So all these manual work, go and fix plumbing work, go and fix AC, go and fix all those work, this call-off contracts. So they are called time and material contracts. So the rate is fixed. Buyers and seller, they share the cost risk. Buyer has to pay predefined rates even if seller cost escalates. Seller can create payment for each unit delivered even if they are not useful for the buyers. Yes. When is this contract type required? Buyers is unable to estimate the quantity due to uncertainty of requirement or for some other reason. The seller cannot estimate cost due to absence of well-defined scope of work. So those are the conditions under which we use the three different types of contract, which is the fixed contract, the cost reimbursable contract, and the time and material contract. In summary, this is how they impact your cost estimate. We have this cost plus, which is the cost reimbursable contract. We have this time and I'm back, sorry. So we're almost at the last phase. The weather here is the rain wants to start falling again. So this is the last slide for today. You can see the cost reimbursable contract. You can see the time and material contract. You can see the fixed contract. This is their level of impact as risk. You can see this is the buyers. The risk decreases. The risk is highest. Is lowest in this. For the buyers, is lower here, lower here, lower here. But for the seller, it is higher here, lower here, and lower here. So fixed price risk is low for the buyers, while it is high for the contractor. Cost reimbursable risk is low for the seller, while the risk is low for the buyer. This is supposed to be buyer here. And it is high for the seller. This is supposed to be seller here too. So just know that the owner is the buyer, while the seller is the contractor. So for the time and material contract, they both share the risk. So those are the content of today's lecture. So tomorrow we are going to enter into total cost estimating management. That is where I will share the link of that estimator for you, which you can share the video also with you, which you can watch at your convenience. You can download the software if you want to use it. But the modified one will come up. They're supposed to come out earlier than this. I think it's because of the COVID-19. In such case, you can easily overlay drawings on the software. You extract your quantity and bill it with your cost database. When you have your price database, you can link the two together. Automatically, you will generate your BOQ. So those are the ones we talk about tomorrow. So if you have questions at this point, you can ask your few questions before the weather will interrupt with our distance. Thank you very much for today's lecture.
Thank you. Even though I joined late, I still gained one or two things. Thank you very much, Doctor.
I'm going to share the video. So I'm going to share the video. I'm going to share the video for you October 1st, public holiday. I will convert everything and share the video to you. And the materials I'm using now, even the risk register I just showed you just now on Excel, I will also share it to you so that we can see, in case you want to develop your risk register, you can just use that one as a guide.
No problem. That would be appreciated. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you very much. I wish you a happy weekend.
You too, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you.